Hello everyone. Today was the first day of NPAT 2019 exam, which many students appear for admissions to some of the most coveted graduation programs of the country. The first day of NPAT 2019 brought some surprises along with it, namely in the quantitative aptitude and reasoning sections. But first, let's talk about the exam format and pattern. The pattern was pretty standard. It had 3 sections: quantitative aptitude, reasoning ability, and English language proficiency. Each section had 40 questions, totaling to up to 120 questions. There was no negative marking, just like last year. The total time allotted for the exam was 100 minutes with no sectional time limitations and the freedom to switch sections at will. Let's talk about the quantitative aptitude section first. The section threw up multiple twists. There were no questions on time and work and only one on time and distance. Again, this one was also pretty lengthy and tricky. This section saw questions from almost all areas of quant aptitude. This section was moderately difficult as students might have found it difficult to select the right number of questions to solve. There were around 5 questions each from set theory, trigonometry and functions. 2 to 3 questions each from set theory, trigonometry and functions were easy. The rest were a little tricky and time consuming. Students would have done well to avoid these. 2 to 3 questions each were asked from progressions, quadratic equations, BODMAS and numbers. Questions from quadratic equations were formula based, so students found them easy. 1 question each from BODMAS, numbers and progressions were direct and easy, while the rest were tricky and time consuming. There was 1 question each from percentage, profit and loss, ratios, linear equations, time, speed and distance, fractions and simple and compound interest. All the questions were easy except that of time, speed and distance and simple and compound interest. Overall, this section was moderately difficult. Ideal attempts in about 30 to 35 minutes would be 22 to 23 attempts, in which a student should score around 17 to 18 marks. If a student can capitalize on his strength and identify the right questions to solve, this section could easily fetch them the right score. Next, let's talk about the reasoning section, which was typical, just like that of NPAT 2018. It had 3 sets of data interpretation with approximately 12 to 14 questions in all. The 3 sets were based on bar graphs and pie charts and line graphs. Almost 5 questions each were asked from data sufficiency, syllogisms, visual reasoning and decision making. Most of these were doable apart from the decision making questions, which were pretty time consuming as always. Rest of the reasoning section comprised of questions from puzzles, blood relations, mathematical reasoning, coding and decoding questions. Students should maximize their attempts in this section by allotting around 40 minutes and attempting 32 to 33 questions. A score of almost 26 to 27 marks could be achieved here. The English language section provided some relief to students as it followed a standard expected format with 3 RCs, 2 lengthy and 1 with average length, with about 12 to 14 questions in all from the 3 RCs being asked. About 3 to 4 questions out of these were inferential or of the indirect kind, but students could solve almost 9 to 10 questions easily. 4 questions from parajumbles, 1 assumption, 1 argument type of questions were asked. A number of questions from grammar were asked, mainly in the error detection and fill in the blank format. Vocabulary had 4 questions, out of which 3 were contextual vocabulary and 1 was an idiom based question. Students would be able to solve almost 32 to 34 questions in about 25 minutes, scoring about 27 to 28 marks. Overall, the first day of this year's NPAT indicates a lowering of cutoffs to the range of 74 to 75 marks as compared to last year, due to the level of difficulty being moderate to tough.